Today we are speaking with one of India's foremost choreographers and founder of the Dance Works Performing Arts Academy, as well as the traveling troupe Navdhara India Dance Theatre. So Ashley sir, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
I know you are leaving for Poland in a short while to put on a performance, and I would like to start with that, to talk to us about the performance and what it is about.
So last year we collaborated with a Polish dance company called Zawirowania, and we took 3 dances from here and 3 dances from there. And I choreographed 3 of their dancers, their choreographer choreographed 3 of ours, and then I choreographed a finale which had all 6 dancers. And we performed that in Warsaw and we performed that in Mumbai. But there was just 1 performance each. This time we're going there, there's a festival that saw the performance and liked it, and they've invited us to go back as a professional performance.
But this is not the first time you're taking your troupe international. I mean, you went to Berlin as well before this, and to Poland before again, like you mentioned. So how has this been on the international scene, this experience of going abroad and putting up performances?
I think the international dance scene is very different to the scene in India, and part of the reason for me doing this is to put India's contemporary dance on the global map. Right now, India, in terms of contemporary dance as seen overseas, we're probably about 25 or 30 years back technically. The idea of me doing this is to let the international world know that even if we don't across the board have that quality of contemporary dance that's on par with them, there are a couple of companies and there are a couple of choreographers that can do that. And so that becomes a starting point for us from India to start moving out and going out and doing stuff over there. Last year we did, I think, 5 cities or 4 cities in Germany with Navdhara, with the company, and there we did Amara. And before that we did Israel with Agni, again with Navdhara, with Tel Aviv. And I mean, we've traveled Mexico, all over the world actually now. I think the company is out generally about 6 months of the year out of 12. And the idea is to get this sense of Indian contemporary dance out there, because there's this notion that in India, contemporary dance, you go and study overseas, you don't go and present it overseas, or you don't go and definitely don't choreograph overseas. You know, that's too far away from India.
Is there a particular reason for that? Or?
I think because realistically they're 20, 30 years ahead, you know, in terms of the industry is much older. It's like if I went to America and said to them, okay, how many Bollywood choreographers would we hire from America? You know, hardly any. Why? Because it's not their ethos, you know. So it's the same thing with contemporary dance. It's not our ethos. It's new. It's very borrowed. So it'll take a while for that ethos to seep in, for ballet to seep in, and then we'll actually get people who are able to, you know, do contemporary dance the way contemporary dance is meant to be done.
But as I see clearly, it's changing. I mean, with your troupe traveling, and I see students performing contemporary dance. You have 2 students who have been picked up also.
Yeah, Amiruddin and Manish. Yeah.
So that's a direction towards success, I believe.
Absolutely. Like we did a project called the Going Home Project a little while ago, which was about 4 years ago, where I gave scholarship to 15 students. And we paid for everything from their studying to their staying to their food to their travel, everything. And the idea was for 1 year. The idea for me doing that was basically to give youngsters in India who have a lot of talent but do not have the possibility to go out there and get trained by professional international teachers. And that is where the problem is. The problem is that you have the talent and then you have the international teachers. But the international teachers cost money, but the talent cannot afford that. So when I did the Going Home project, that was to bridge that. And out of that project came these 2 boys. One was invited to the American Ballet Theatre as well as to the Royal Ballet in London, and he's often in the Royal Ballet, Amir. And Manish went off to American Ballet Theatre, and then he went off to the Oregon Ballet. And from there he went to the kibbutz in Israel, and now he is starring in an Indian film that's based on ballet.
That's awesome.
And the whole film is about their story actually.
And which brings us to your connection with films. I mean, I know you started with stage, and when I look at your film choreography as well, whether it is Tamasha or whether it is Rabta even, and Jab We Met, there are instances where there is that experience of stage that shows off. So how influential was stage to your own career?
I think the basic point with film, I think film, as you know, you come from camera as well, like it boils down to content. No matter what you do, it boils down to content. You can have great camera work, you can have great angles. If you do not have clear, strong, connected content, it will not hold. So theatre teaches you that, because you have to hold an audience for that long, for 50 minutes. So you get the connect. My excitement with film was that unlike theatre, which is a fixed frame, the camera can shift. So it's a constantly moving frame. So that was what got me into film, got me fascinated with film. But the fundamentals of theatre is what I'm usually hired for, because in theatre there is a certain degree of simplicity and honesty that you have to bring forth. And I think that's what I bring, a sense of connect. I have a technique called prana paint, which is based on breath and yoga, and I use that to connect to actors or connect dancers. I also, being a theatre person, my understanding of narrative is a strength of mine, as what most people have told me, and I usually get hired for work like that. So it's usually in Jab We Met, I'd get a song like Tum Se Hi, where I have to take Shahid's mindset and Karina's mindset, and I've got to actually think more like a director rather than a choreographer. Also, if I could say in Aaj Kal, if I did the Seth's Unwinding song in San Francisco, again, that's actually thinking like a director. So my understanding of narrative is being used. I did do some international choreography styles, like when I did Dhoom long ago, but I think I get more hired for narrative.
One of, bringing the question to narrative, one of my favorite portions of your choreography was in Tamasha, where the Chali Kahani song goes. And I thought it was very fascinating to tell a story itself, which is a very stage-like production. So if you could talk about that.
I think Imtiaz comes also from a theatre background, and so we connect really well on that sense. That he, and if you look at Tamasha, Tamasha is a lot about that particular diaspora. It's about a person who wants to get into theatre, and theatre is a very difficult thing to take over. And most of the people who have gone into film and all have come from that sense of choosing an alternative vocation. So for me, I enjoyed actually doing that whole thing, because it was very close to my journey, Imtiaz's journey, and most artists' journey. It's a journey of struggle. It's a journey of going against the tide and making choices that normally people don't make. And also it's about the confusion that you go through when making those choices, because you're confronted with them at a very young age. And you sometimes make the wrong choices, and then you go back and you rechange your choice. And most of us have lived that journey. Like I worked in a clearing forwarding agency before I switched back to dance. So for the longest time I worked traveling on the back of trucks and doing all kinds of other things. So I sold vacuum cleaners, I worked in fish and chip shops to put myself through dance school. So the journey is very varied, and I think Tamasha says it very beautifully. It actually tells the story of someone making those choices.
Is that something which is really why you connect to the project, Going Home project, that you're part of?
The Going Home project is very close to my heart, because I think when I left India to study in Australia, I left India in 88, 89 I think, and I lived there for 12 years. And while I was in Australia, I studied and danced professionally there. And but when I had to leave here to go and study, at that time there was only Doordarshan. So for me to choose international dance was a very big choice for me to make. And the pressure of my parents having to give me that kind of money, even if it was on loan, they loaned me $10,000 and I paid them back within 9 months, which is why I was working in shops and stuff like that to pay them back for dance school. Was a big pressure. So I always feel that today, now that I have this know-how, it's very important that I share that, because there are many other kids in the country who have the same dream. They don't have the resources. They don't have the resources to come here, leave alone go abroad. So the Going Home project was one step further than taking them abroad. It was actually bringing them from the small towns to the big city.
When we talk about contemporary dance, in India, there's this, while it is growing, there is a growing education in dance forms. We still have the most popular idea of Western dance being the b-boying, the break dance and stuff. How does it change? How can it change, and how?
It will change. It's a matter of time. 20 years ago when I first came to India, there was only a hoarding saying learn Casio and learn disco dance. And then I started teaching trained international dance with a syllabus and I didn't mix it with Indian music or Indian dance. I taught it as a format. And today, like all across the country, a lot of our students are teaching and have their own academies and are actually teaching, are very purist in their form. And for me now, I feel that is going to shift, because initially what's seen most is what gets the most traction. So currently in India, because the training levels haven't gone up to that level, so what is most popular is the untrained levels. So the untrained, so b-boying and street dance doesn't require training as much as it's more natural, it's more instinctive. It is so each person can develop and you can learn it off the street, and it's more about steps rather than learning a versatile technique. So in that sense, right now it is popular, but I think like it'll start to get marginalized over a period of time, and it'll become one of many styles once the understanding of how it is overseas becomes parallel over here. Like for example, in India, overseas, b-boying and all is popular, but it is not like in America. If you ask a dancer, does he want to be a b-boyer? Not really. He wants to go into a ballet company, he wants to go into a professional contemporary dance company, he wants to dance on Broadway. Now all of that requires training, and the employed dancers, which is about 80 or 90% of the dancers, have come from a jazz or ballet training. You know, so to me, as India starts to get more aware and the dancers start to get more aware, they'll start to educate themselves and understand that employment, versatile employment, is in the trained styles, not in the street styles. So the street styles is great as an additional style to know if you want employment either on Broadway or in a teaching in a commercial space, but it cannot be the only style unless you're extremely gifted, because when you're doing a street style, everybody is reinventing it every day. So you must have something really special, because it's so crowded, the space is so crowded. The training space is not as crowded because it's more specialist.
I was reading about your contemporary dance forms and the performance pieces that you have put in, and I was intrigued by the titles of Yama and Agni that showed up. And I wanted to know how you combine these themes of Indian themes into contemporary pieces, and how is it received and how do people work to it?
The first piece I did was a piece called Amara, and Amara was taken from the Greek goddess of the word Amar. Amar is eternal. So so the piece started with nothing and it ended with nothing, because nothingness is eternal. Like when there's nothing and that's eternal, yeah. But in between, it was very tumultuous and very emotional. So that was Amara. The second piece for me was Agni, and Agni is about fire. Fire is about passion. Passion creates, passion destroys. So I feel that I was fascinated by the thought of fire and the god of fire. The god of fire ignites passion. Every new thing starts with creation and destruction, and which then led me to Yama, which is birth and death. The creation of something is birth, and the death of something is destruction. So from Agni I went to Yama, which is the extreme understanding of it. And in Yama also I feel that like when I look at Yama, I think the Yama exists within us and Yama exists on the external. So there's physical death, but I think in life we have many deaths. So it's the death of a relationship, or it's a death of philosophy, or a death of an idea, or death of a phase. We, in those states, we instigate the Yama from within us. So it was playing with the thought of the Yama within and the Yama without.
Having traveled across so internationally, what is the Western perception of an Indian company coming abroad to perform contemporary dance pieces?
Most of them are like super surprised because they don't even know that contemporary dance exists, and most of them have seen Indian TV, and what they see on Indian TV is untrained contemporary dance. We call it pedestrian contemporary dance. So for them, that occupies probably 1% of their diaspora. So for them, it's like it's non-existent that you actually have contemporary dance. So when they see a company like Navdhara go out there that's trained and is as trained as an international dance company, then they suddenly stop and they're like, oh my God, we didn't know that this actually existed in India. And then they start taking notice. And my idea is to use Navdhara as a starting point, and to go, for me, choreographing overseas as a choreographer as a starting point, but the end game would be in the next 10 years to have many companies and many choreographers going out there and working overseas.
And one of the major reasons the West has a perception of that is through films that we put across.
It's the films. I think more than the films, I think it's more what they would see on our TV. Our TV and our reality shows are a huge advantage because they've actually brought so much popularity to dance, you know. But having said that, the advantage is that they give dance a wider vision and a wider platform. But the disadvantage is that they also give what is available. They don't give what is not available. So, and unfortunately, because contemporary dance and international dance in India is just in its starting phase, what's available is not necessarily where it's at. So what shouldn't be advertised is also being advertised. So it will take us a while. So as much as we're trying to evolve international dance in the country, the publicity coming out of what's being made popular is the more untrained style. So it's a cross, but we still need them because we need them to popularize dance larger as a vocation. So it works at cross purposes, but it's interesting.
Coming back to films, because you brought up an interesting concept of popularity. Is it you have tried it? You have brought in contemporary moves and contemporary pieces, like I mentioned, Tamasha, into cinema. Does it require a director with that vision, who shares that vision, to bring that choreography into the story and to seamlessly meld it in?
Yeah, I think so, and I feel that like the kind of contemporary dance that I've taken out with Amara or with Agni, or what I've just choreographed for the Linz Ballet in Austria, Yama, that is not even seen in India. I mean, people don't even know it exists. So I mean, a director wouldn't even conceive of it. It wouldn't occur to them. The only way I think that would happen is if there is a director who comes from that background and creates something like that. But the existing directors, there are a few directors who are experimental, who understand this, and yes, it would come mainly from them. But I do think that it would be nice if some international choreographers that go out of India go out and make some films. Soon, I think there's going to be a ballet film, and I think that's the starting point, because when the story of a ballet kid from here who goes out and makes it in London and then becomes a star of a film, then ballet starts to become popular, and that for me is the starting point of where real dance, professional dance, is going to get the wider platform, and that'll immediately separate from the untrained styles. So all of a sudden, the same diaspora, the same boy who's living in Dharavi is going out there and doing ballet and landing up in London. All of a sudden, the shift is going to happen, where I feel, maybe not a large shift, but at least people will start looking and thinking, okay, aside from the street styles and aside from the untrained contemporary, maybe if I train myself in ballet, I can get into a prestigious school in London or in America and get a full scholarship to that. So then that'll be the seed of where the real industry will begin.
And I understand you have a packed schedule with international tours and performances. Are there any films in the offing? Are you still focused on cinema?
This year I'm trying to do a little less film. Up to last year I was doing film, but this year I think I want to focus a little more this year on the work that I'm doing internationally. I'm starting to get a little bit of traction as a choreographer internationally, and to be asked to choreograph for like the Linz Ballet, which is like it's a tier 1 company, so it's number 1 company, number 1 level company. That's a huge, there are only like a handful of choreographers in the world that will be called to do that. So I really suddenly realized that, you know, that's a great opening for me to now establish and focus myself internationally in that level. So my focus is going more there for this year. But next year maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll focus. I think I also want to focus on writing my own script and directing my own film. So
oh, that would be exciting.
Make a dance film, yeah. So I think I'm also shifting a little bit out of the choreography because I want to go into directing my own film.
Oh, that is exciting. We certainly look forward to that.
Thanks so much.